Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a GeekVerse review. I am the landlord, Travis Snell, and I'm joined by,
I am the Adam Harcaster, Dylan Moss.
yes, ladies and gentlemen. Luckily we're recording this earlier than we planned, but I know I'm kind of diving into it. But at one point we kept like pushing a review. And I'm like, I feel like this is a movie I definitely want to have somebody. And I was happy you volunteered, and after seeing the movie, I'm very happy you volunteered because
Yeah.
covering this one alone would have been something else. But yeah, it's Geek First. But this is like for me, it's the calm before the storm because I just had my last day work and then I got 10 days off. But
Oh,
then
nice.
next week is Star Wars Celebration and then the debut Obi-Wan, and then the week after that, okay, I'll just say the next 2 weeks is like Summer Games Fest, Jurassic World, Xbox Game Conference,
Mm-hmm.
Strikers, like the next like 2.5 weeks for movie, TV shows, and video games. We just got a packed schedule coming up. So it's
Yeah.
exciting. I love those times. I love being busy and having all this glorious stuff. It's just good. Like even right now, we are talking about multiverse. Like there's so much good stuff, but it's like all the marathon is about to come of fun content. But it's exciting, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
It is. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Geek First Podcast. Go down links below and you can find everything like I talked about. We do weekly reviews, so we will be doing that for Obi-Wan. You guys just finished up Halo. So you
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to season 2, Dylan?
Uh, yeah.
Looking forward to doing the
Sure.
reviews, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more
Yeah.
it.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I haven't watched the
They can
show,
take
but
their time. I'll wait. Like, I don't need it right now. Kind of.
we
That's
got
where
Lord of
I'm
the
at.
Rings coming in the fall. That'll be
Yeah.
the good enough TV show. But and then yeah, obviously this is dropping on Saturday, so we're somewhere in the middle of your side quest. But what was the last side quest
Sure.
you did? And then what's the upcoming one for next week?
Yeah, last week, me and Taylor sat down and just had a ton of news to break down, so that was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And then this week, not as much news dropped, but me and Kirklin are just going to be tackling multiverses. We all
Mm-hmm.
have codes for that. We're hopping in the beta, checking that out. So that'll be kind of the main topic of the episode. So yeah, good times.
I was surprised they let people talk about it because when Clay told me it's no embargo, I was very surprised because I know and that's where Kirkland probably talk on your review.
Mm-hmm.
He had played this game months ago and he was embargoed. He wasn't allowed to say anything
Yeah.
publicly. So,
Well, yeah, I
yeah,
think this is much more of a marketing push this time, right? Because
yep.
they like, I saw all over my Twitch because I follow a bunch of Smash players, and a
Mm-hmm.
ton of them are doing like sponsored ad streams for the game, right?
That
So
makes
they're
sense.
really,
That's
even
smart
though it is a
though.
beta, they're still like, this is really the marketing push. So I'm guessing it's gonna come out soon.
Yeah.
Is why they're not having embargoes and stuff like that.
Well, look out for that, ladies and gentlemen, because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to tune that, and then I'm just excited for yeah, like you guys talked about. I definitely see a multiverse cup happening or something like that because
Yeah, definitely.
could be some fun stuff. So yeah, and then we usually got a couple newscasts every week. Like I said, right now is the calm before the storm. Big reviews coming up. Oh God, like I said, Jurassic World,
Mm-hmm.
Strikers is coming up. So lots of good stuff. If you like what we do, you have the main feed. So if you like everything we do, it's all there. But if you like separate shows, like side quests, like just the reviews, the retrospectives, the news, or if you just don't want to lose anything to shuffle because we got so much content going out, you can subscribe to one of those feeds. And
Mm-hmm.
best way to support us is Patreon because you get ad-free, exclusive early episodes. And the more you support us, more content you get. You guys make it possible, along with the listeners, to do more of these things. So we very much appreciate it. And you get to produce things like this review, which I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
because I know the most anticipated person is probably Maddie because he's like, I need someone to review this, and
Yeah,
I'm like, well, look out,
we
and
gotcha.
yeah, Maddie, look out this. I said money. This is gonna be dropping on the weekend, so even sooner. So uh, Dilmas, I have to ask you because I was never sure. So this movie is directed by Alex Garland, as usual. Do our non-spoilers. So if you're what, and I actually think this is one. If you're wondering if you should see or not, you should listen to non-spoilers. Of course, we'll warn you, and
Yes,
then we'll jump.
absolutely.
But I think this is definitely one where it's I'd maybe only recommend it to a certain amount of people, and you can see if you fit that box. But with Alex Garland, had you ever seen Ex Machina or Annihilation?
I have not seen either of those. They are
Oh,
high,
okay.
or at least Ex Machina mostly is high on my list of
Yes.
I gotta knock those off my backlog, but still have not seen them. So I'm kind of going in fresh on like one of his movies.
Well, there you go. So so now that you've seen a movie,
Hmm.
does this make you more or less intrigued to go back and see those other ones?
I'm really curious because I feel like his those other two movies, or at least Ex Machina, are be- maybe not mainstream, but like pretty close to mainstream. Like they're pretty popular and talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like seems like such a more niche movie that I wonder if he went a different route with these. And those ones I assumed from afar that they're kind of like heavy sci-fi kind of movies, whereas
Yes.
this is like probably a very low budget kind of film. Like it seemed like more of an indie kind of
Yeah,
picture. So
psychological
yeah.
horror thriller in a way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I guess to get into the non-spoilers part of it, like, yeah, before anything, and this maybe is a bit spoilery in terms of I didn't expect that for this movie, but I need to put like a massive trigger warning on this movie because it is grotesque, it is like
Yes.
disgusting, it's very heavy.
Yes.
And I can usually handle that stuff, but even I had like a couple times was looking away or cover my eyes and stuff like that. So I think if you're like at all squeamish or you're not into the saws of the world, don't see this. It's not like it's
Mm-mm.
I like the movie, but it's not worth that pain. I don't think. I saw it with my partner, and
Oh
she did not
no.
enjoy her time at all.
Oh
I would
no.
say, yeah, she was
Oh
not into
no.
it.
I was just about to ask you if you took her, and I was like, oh, I'm hoping he says no. And I was like, oh no, damn it. We're
Yeah,
really striking out here at the Geek First. Madison hated the Northman, Muds hated
yeah.
men, you know. So I
Well, there's pros and cons. I really like to go into things as
Mhm.
blind as possible, and for things like Marvel movies and whatnot, it's hard to do. But for something like this, like I don't know, I just saw that one. I don't even know if it's a teaser trailer, maybe it was a full trailer, and thought it would be kind of a straightforward, classic horror thriller.
Yeah.
And I like going into movies not really knowing what to expect. And even I saw you and Maddie started to talk about it, and I like tuned out right away. I'm like, okay, I want to go in, see it myself, but. Maybe I should have asked you guys first if it was a good one to bring her to. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
I should have said something. Do you like it overall?
Yeah, I do. I'm really curious. When we get to the end of the year,
I
and I'm
do.
doing like some rankings and stuff, like I have no fucking clue how to compare this to other movies. But
Mhm.
I do think there's a lot of really good stuff going on here. I think the acting is phenomenal. Cinematography is great. The symbolism, there's like just foreshadow in every scene almost. I feel like if you rewind, pause, things like that, you'd find so many great details in there. Uh, I guess I'm still like I just watched this movie like half an hour ago. I just got out, so I'm still
Yeah.
kind of reeling from it and still thinking about it. But I do like it. I don't know if it's skyrocketing to the top of my rankings. I don't love it, but I think
Mhm.
there is a lot to enjoy here. But I honestly don't think I'd recommend it to many people just because it is so gross. I feel like you can get the positives out of this movie from a lot of other movies, so
Yeah.
it's not like worth it to go to this one. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. It sounds like you're kind of in a similar boat to me on this.
I think your assimilation makes sense for the people that have seen it, you know. But I think
Mm.
that's one thing that's gonna be interesting because I feel like it's gonna be one of those movies that enough people are like, oh yeah, yeah, you shouldn't see that one. Then enough people be like, oh, maybe I should see that because like enough people say, oh, I don't know if
Yeah.
this is for you. But then when people start to watch it, yeah, I'm similar in a similar boat as you. We'll have to see once we get into spoilers. I think you may have liked it a bit more than me. I love the first two. I said I like to love the first two acts, and I don't even mind the third act. I just
Mm-hmm.
think that they went a little too overboard in trying to get weird. And we talk about that. Like we put Malignant in our best of Golden
Mm-hmm.
Geeks last year. Like we love, we memed about Lighthouse for years.
I
We
feel
love
like
like
me and you used to review a lot of weird kind of movies like
yes.
this back in a few years ago.
100%. And I honestly, there's tons of movies in cinema, but I feel like in the Geek First era, this is probably the weirdest movie I ever viewed. And it's funny because I feel like the first, it's not that, it doesn't get that trophy until like the last 20-25 minutes, because that's when it just goes batshit. I feel like I've had some drugs. And it's funny because I was reading after this, I was reading interviews with Alex Garland, and he's talking about the way he wanted to do things in this movie. When people say, oh, I've never seen this in a movie, and he'll watch that movie and he'll be like, oh, I've seen that before, I've seen that done many times.
Mm.
With this movie, I wanted to do something that no one had ever seen before, and you definitely do that. This is definitely, if anyone's seen Men, you're gonna have something to talk about, not only like the good stuff but also just like the ending's crazy. But I think they just I think what my problem was that I think the pros, and I think I have more pros for the movie, but the
Mm.
cons are so heavy that that's what kind
Yeah,
of
that's a good
left
way to
me
put
with
it.
it. Yeah, that's what kind of left me with it at the end. And I think at the last act, I'll say, but really last 20 minutes, I think it just felt more style over substance. It just felt like we were really just pushing the envelope for no reason, to the point where I was alone when I saw it, and then there was only four other dudes, and we were kind of like, there was chuckling happen in the theater because it just got outrageous at one point. Of like, okay, we're still doing this. So
Yeah.
overall, the themes of the movie I really like. I love, like, it's especially, and we'll talk about this more in spoilers, especially now, especially in North America right now, as far as like talking about women's rights and women's issues and things like
Hmm.
that. Now, again, straight white male, but I can attest to it as far as, living with women my whole life and having three daughters. And it's just these things where it's tough to talk about in the non-spoiler way, but I think it has a good, there's some movies that highlight issues and they don't do them too subtly, or they really just throw it in your face like, oh, this is the issue, and you understand it, you get it. And they, that's why I kind of hated the ending, because I feel like that was hitting you over the head. But the rest of the movie I thought was really subtle. There'd be little lines, like you said, symbolisms to kind of show that, okay, this is really about, a woman living in it. She's dealing with trauma and guilt, but she's living in a man's world, and what kind of comes with the burden of that if you're in the
Hmm.
wrong situation with the wrong people. And I think this kind of, the reason this movie is called Men, because I think it takes the qualities of certain things that men have and like amplifies them to 10 and shows them how bad they can be. So whether it's kind of gaslighting,
Hmm.
whether it's kind of guilt tripping, so that was all good. So I think that's why it really disappointed me, because it was building up, and especially when that third act started, it does start really creepy. I was like, oh man, this is going to have a really strong ending, and I didn't think so. And for me, it's interesting because I would compare the other two movies. He's a very kind of like Black Mirror-ish director, I'd say. Like the other ones are kind of weird too, but Ex Machina is definitely the most mainstream, and that's where I feel like, okay, there's weirdness in it, but the most, it's pretty straightforward. Just has some good characters and story. Annihilation got a little more weird. This was going the full 1080, and it's
Hmm.
one of those that I don't know what's gonna happen when his next film comes out, because I love Ex Machina, but it's one of these, like, I don't know if I need to see it in the theaters, but I probably still would, because it's still an interesting movie. Like you said, it's acted well, it's shot well, the score was really good.
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
definitely seen things I'd never seen before, but it's just a question of, at the end, was I satisfied? I'm still kind of wrangling with that. Like,
Hmm.
if you were to ask me would I pass it, I would, just on the kind of film etiquette of like how well it's made. But as far as an actual movie me liking, I don't know if I'll ever go back and watch this movie
No, no, no.
ever. Where, like, even after Lighthouse, I kind of thought that, but then a year later, I was like, you know what, I do want to see Lighthouse again. I watch it, and like similar with like Hereditary, Midsummer, all these weird movies, I've kind of had the inkling to go back and be like, even Mother. I only got halfway through Mother, but I watched Mother, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll put on again. I was kind of, okay, I've seen enough. I don't know if I need to this one. It's kind of like once a magician tells you the trick,
Mm.
that trick's not really that special anymore. And that sounds really bad, but that's just the only way I can equate it to.
Mother was the movie I was thinking of in terms
Hmm.
of if I had to compare it to something, I would compare it to that because even the plot and the realism in this movie just gets so nonsensical in that it is like trying to hit these themes that you talked about and yeah, it just kind of it gets lost in it, which is
Hmm.
fine for what the movie is, but then you also maybe feel a little less invested and disconnected because you're not like in the shoes of a character anymore. You're just in like some strange fantasy land with just
Yeah.
like each scene is just a random smattering of like disgusting imagery and all that.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing where I think you're right when you lose the themes, because I start to wonder more about the fantastical or horror elements more than the how the themes relate to this, you know? And I know someone, this is gonna be one of those movies like, oh, you just didn't get it. No, I think I, maybe not everything, but I think I got
Hmm.
the crux of what they're going for.
I
But
wonder if this movie's gonna have its defenders out there who are
a
gonna
hundred percent. Oh yeah,
be
100%.
spreading that around.
There'll be
You
tons of
don't get
people.
it. You
You
don't
just
get
didn't
it.
get it. You just didn't get it. Oh, you
Yeah.
didn't. But I think that's the thing where the horror elements, I think, are supposed to elevate or raise up those themes. At the end, I don't think they do, and I think that's the unfortunate thing, because they just overtake the film so much. So yeah, anything else well, I guess for me, who I'd recommend it to is, if you like his work already, go see it. If you liked the trailer, I would say watch at home, because I don't think I could guarantee you liking this movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm kind of being nice on it, because I feel like if I would have done this review, and that's what's interesting for you. When I first got out of it, I feel like I was a bit more like, like I don't know. I think I still would have passed it, but I was a bit more harder on it. Once I slept, I was like, okay. But it's just because that last act really left me strong or left me feeling weak. So yeah, I think other than if you like his work or you like really, really weird things, there's not many people. There's no one in my personal life I'm gonna recommend this to.
No, me neither. I think definitely watch it at home because then you can just turn it off when you're not into it, because that might happen. And honestly, even if that happens, it starts getting gross, and you just turn it off. Like you maybe still had a good time with it, up
Mhm.
to that point, and that's fine. Just an
Yeah.
hour-long horror movie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, if you are curious or you're going to see it or you want to come back, we're going to take a break right now and then we'll be right back with spoilers. So, yes, we're going to talk about this very interesting movie after this.
Hmm.
All right. Where do we start at the beginning? Do we start at the end? Where is it? It's so tough.
Yeah, my notes. I mean, like I said, I just finished watching it, so my notes on this are very disorganized and
Yeah.
whatnot. But I guess maybe a good safe place to start is just to, for me, like praise the acting. We really have two actors in this movie,
Hmm.
and obviously, I don't know their names off the top of my head because I'm not too familiar with them. But let me go
Yeah, I
to
felt like the main
IMDb.
actors I've seen in something, and then the
I
other
was feeling the
one,
same way, and I
yeah,
couldn't I couldn't piece it.
and then the
But her
guy who
Jesse
plays
Jesse Buckley is her
Jesse
name,
Buckley.
and
Okay.
then Rory
Kinner or
Kinnear.
something? Yeah, yeah.
Kinnear,
I
yeah.
only know him from one thing. He's in the Daniel Craig Bond movies. He plays Tanner.
And
That's the
Black
only.
Mirror.
Oh,
Remember
right.
he plays like the
He's the
president who
president
fucks
or
the pig in like the
he's the prime
first
minister.
episode.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
Which
He's
it's
so
funny that you
you.
mentioned Black Mirror earlier because I was like, oh yeah, this is in that wheelhouse for sure, and using like the British actors and stuff like this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like with you're 100% right with the acting. That's so funny with Black Mirror. But like that's a comparison. Like you and I have reviewed a lot of Black Mirror, which is
Hmm.
coming back for season 6. They just
Is it?
announced.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like that's one of those things where sometimes I feel like we have those episodes where they're gross or they don't sit well with us. But because they're shorter and there's the episodes, you just kind of move
Mm-hmm.
on and you forget about them. But because this is still, I was surprised was when I was looking at the screen times, only an hour and a half. Like, okay, this is. I was expecting a little bit longer even though it's only an hour and a half, that last act it makes it feel like a 2 hour movie because it's a slowly paced movie. But yeah, acting is top notch. Buckley's phenomenal. Like she's somebody that
Mm-hmm.
I will be invested in wanting to see her in other stuff. And what was the guy's name? Greg something or
Rory
Rory?
Kinnear.
Rory Kinnear. Really well done. And there's definitely some questionable stuff I had with what they did with him, but the fact that I mean now we're in spoilers, he played lots of different roles, and they're
Yeah.
all kind of little variations. My favorite being Jeffrey because he's just like
Oh, I
such a
love Jeffrey.
yeah. Like I want
Well,
him
I don't.
to
I shouldn't say I love
yeah.
Jeffrey, but
I
yeah.
love Jeffrey to a point. I liked him when he was maybe a character from
I
Wallace
was
and Gromit.
cracking up in like the initial sequence when he's touring the home and he's like
Hmm.
wibbly wobbly up the stairs. Like he just the way
He
like
feels like a
that's what's
Potter
impressive.
character.
Yeah, it's so impressive to me that he's doing the British accent in different ways and just
Hmm.
like slight changing it in sometimes slight but also sometimes like very severe ways and like he able to bring all these different characters to life even if really only one of them you're getting like a lot of dialogue from but
Yes.
I thought that was great. And even like the weird thing of like he also plays a kid and it's just kind of this weird CGI big head. But to me
Yeah.
that actually really worked even though it kind of looked jarring because it's the uncanny valley effect and it works for what this movie is, like to have this creepy off like unsettling looking kid.
Hmm. Yeah, it worked for me later on. At first, it didn't work for me because, so yeah, like, as we said, we're in spoilers now. So he plays all these roles, right? And first
Mhm.
you meet Jeffrey, and then you slowly go throughout the town to meet every man there. And I think to me, that's kind of an allegory for kind of men being like kind of partnering together, like playing the
To me I
blame
just
game
took it as
together.
like all men are the same. That's
Yes.
why yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I took from that as well, trying to say like, okay, they might have different bad qualities, but
Mhm.
they're the same
Which I like
nonetheless.
because it's so on the nose to just like,
Yes.
yeah, we're just cast the same guy. But for me, it really worked for what this movie is.
Well, and I think what makes it not on the nose, like it's on the nose, but then what counteracts this is they never call it out. She's
Mm,
never like why, and I thought that's what was going to be
yeah.
the case. Is like, oh, she's going to start because I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, is this like an inbred talent? Like, why do all these
Yeah.
guys look the same, right? And really, it's more just an allegory thing. Like the way I almost took it as these guys could all legitimately have different faces, but she's almost just seeing them as
Mm-hmm.
having the same face. So
Absolutely.
that's what kind of worked for me. But the first time when we saw, yeah, the little like choir kid and he had the CGI face. And this is when I thought they were trying to maybe be smart with it of like, oh, you're not going to know all these faces. I was like, ooh, this is a poor choice because like the CGI doesn't look the greatest on his face. This does not look like a 12-year-old boy. This looks like a 40-year-old man on a 12-year-old's
Got a
body.
big head for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, 100%, very disproportionate. But like you said, I think it did work for me later on. Where like, okay, that's not the twist of the story. That's just another layer on it. And I feel like that's one of those things too. Maybe I wish they still did it a little sooner because we meet Jeffrey and then we meet the naked guy. He's like the green man, they
Mhm.
call him. And then we meet the priest and they all look different enough where you're like, is that the same actor? Is it
Yeah,
not? And but once I saw a kid, I was like, okay, this is what they're going. So I feel like they could have
sure.
held on to that a little bit, but maybe they want you to catch on that really, like they wanted you to know, like, hey, no, this is the same actor playing all these roles.
Yeah, I wonder how intentional that was supposed to be because yeah, I guess you could there is kind of a part where she zooms in a bit on her phone and you do see the naked man a bit closer. But
Mhm.
for me I didn't see that as the same actor until later on. Until like after that scene, I think at the church. But I like that with the vicar, like with the hair that they gave him, and then just the pupils that were just completely black, like he had
Mhm.
no color in his eye whatsoever. Just little changes like that. And then I feel like at the bar, it's they're pretty much just throwing a wig on him more or less,
Oh
but it's still
yeah.
like it's the way he holds himself
Mhm.
and things like that. And then the police officer is just a very like I don't know, regular looking dude. The way he stands around doesn't have any like that's just what he looks like as a person,
Yeah.
not dressed up in anything. So I don't know. I guess that pacing of like revealing that worked for me.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Mhm,
I think it worked good because so like kind of what I was trying to talk about, but not talk about non spoilers is the whole fact of like, okay, all men are the same, and we don't want to be like that, but that's what this movie's
mhm,
proposing, or at least I feel like even if you're somebody that you feel like you're not like that, this is always a sign to do better because you constantly have like multiple issues, and there's three I'd kind of throw out as the biggest ones, but multiple issues that the man is perpetrating, but then he blames the woman or kind of
yeah,
says it is the woman's fault. Like the three biggest one also again, like is the crux of the movie is, the suicide of the former
mhm,
husband. And then there's like the priest becoming attracted to her, and the priest just completely blames her, like, oh, it's your fault that I'm having all these
mhm,
visions. And then even the cop where, they arrest this naked goon and everything, they let him out, and she's like, what do you mean you just let him? Like, oh, it's fine, he did nothing. And it's just kind of gaslighting her into this guy who literally tried to break in her house or
mhm,
whatever, the place she's renting, all these things that, oh no, it's gonna be fine. It's like he knows where she lives, like she's not safe at all. So he constantly, and I think again that was kind of the same factor of casting the same guy, or the same factor of casting the same actor, was so you could kind of perpetrate that as no, like this is a reoccurring cycle that these men keep
mhm.
kind of betraying her trust, and she can't really trust any of them. And that's the stuff I was all really liking, all those themes, and kind of because I felt they were subtle and slowly revealing themselves. So I liked all that stuff tying
Yeah.
it together.
I also wondered too because the movie was realistic until after she leaves the bar, and I wondered if there was going to be some plot that like drugged her drink, and obviously he
Hmm.
was the same guy, so if that was part of it too. I don't think that's really what's going on when we're seeing all this different imagery, but I thought, well, that could have fit within the story, so it would have made sense. But I guess just to like once again kind of praise her performance because obviously it's when you watch Split, it's like, well, you're gonna look at McAvoy and that's the performance that you talk about because he's playing all these different characters. Same thing
Hmm.
here, but she does such a great performance too, even if it is more one dimensional. But there is still a lot to it in terms of her dealing with the trauma, breaking down in these different scenes, and even just like having her little moments where she's happy when
Hmm.
like when she's in that tunnel saying like I love that scene. Obviously it was the
So
trailer
good.
scene. But even just that little smile from her at the end when she sees her friend and it's daytime and she's okay. So yeah, I think amazing performance, and I want to see yeah what she does in the future. And I thought she was also in Black Mirror too. I was like starting to like make all these connections. I'm like, she must have been in an episode of Black Mirror. It fits, but I don't think she was. But I'm excited to see what she does in the future.
Yeah, I think she did a good thing because obviously she's a character that is like coming off a lot of pain, a really terrible situation, but she doesn't play it as she's just dour all the time. You can tell there's something bothering her,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not just okay, I'm gonna be stoic and to themselves and
Yeah.
everything like that. And like you said, there's enjoyment that she finds. I think she does a really good job, particularly in those scenes with the husband. I thought those were really well done scenes because these are scenes that other than him threatening to kill himself. These are scenes we've seen millions of times in movies, right? Is one couple wanting to work it out and one of the
Mm-hmm.
partners not wanting to, right? So I think it feels a little, I wouldn't say refreshing, it just feels all realistic and everything like that.
Yeah.
And again, her as her guide, I felt invested in her, which is a good thing, and the whole time from start to finish. And at the ending, you could like, I don't even like. There's part of it still even thought that you could say none of it was real. Like, because the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
she goes out there and sees, her friend gets there, she sees her outside, she waves. Yeah, the car's dunged up, but the way you could almost take it as, yeah, she got drunk or drugged at that bar and she saw all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, and that's what happened. Because, and I honestly like the movie better if it's that way. I
Mm-hmm.
like it better if it is kind of real, because I think if again the sanctum of all this stuff is real, but it does tie the theme together, especially that's what I was trying to say again, and also not and non spoilers about like current stuff of with kind of the blame game and all these men assigning her. Like you talk about right now, like the terrible stuff that's happening in America, like in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, with all the pro life stuff being like enforced on a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's something right there where it's like this movie heavily talks about or insinuates, like a woman having choice, or like, we are literally seeing that choice taken away. And even just that priest thing remind me of how many times in kind of criminal justice law where there'd been a rape case and they, that terrible expression of, you shouldn't dress like that. Like it doesn't matter. A
Mm-hmm.
girl doesn't matter what a girl dressed like. That doesn't shouldn't invoke anything like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what the movie was trying to hit on lots. And I think it did that well. And I guess this is where I guess I just got to spit it out, get to the end where I was loving the build, and that took me right out of it. And even the horror stuff was good. I thought all the horror stuff was really well done. The creepiness, like I know we'd seen a bit of that in the tunnel, but man, when you saw the full scene of the actual tunnel of the guy just popping on, and just this guy in
Mm-hmm.
the shadows running you, oh my god, I was enjoying the movie, but I'm like, okay, we're taking a slow pace. I know we're gonna get there, but when that happened, and then that scene when she's talking to her friend on the phone, and the naked guy just around the house, oh my god, like just nails on a chalkboard. So good, all that stuff.
There, there's a this movie actually did make me laugh a few times, and some of it I think was intentional, like with Jeffrey and his funny phrases and whatnot.
Mhm.
But then some of it, like that scene, made me laugh when he's just hanging out the windows and she's
Yeah.
giving her friend the tour. Like that scene made me laugh too. Obviously not when she was walking through the woods, but yeah, just like that scene obviously was the kind of the trailer scene, but then like to see where it goes from there, of her running away and then kind of missing her turn off, and then like ending up at this kind of creepy train station as well, which
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about that. So in one of the flashbacks that we get later on in the movie, when it's just like quick flashes of like things she's been in the past, she's like banging on the train house door, but she never did that when she was actually there. So
Yeah.
what was that about? Like, is there something to be said about that? Like, are we doing the multiverse here? Obviously not, but I was really curious why they showed this thing that we like at presume like this part is when everything we were seeing is real, and
Mhm.
that never happened. And
Well,
she
and
like because she was very composed during that scene as well, which I wanted to quickly comment on, like just how strong she is in many moments, but even just things like when she's walking home from the bar and she like turns around, she's gonna go back, but then she's like, no, I can do this, and
mhm.
goes. She's a very strong character, but like in that moment, it's like flashing back to this thing that didn't happen. So what do you think's going on there?
Well, it's interesting. I think if anything, as I was like joking about before, but if there's anything in the review or when people talk about this movie, like, oh, you just didn't get it, that could be one of those. Because like the
Mm,
other one that I thought we were gonna get mentioned, we never did. And again, you can just chalk it up to bad Wi-Fi signal. But her friend, anytime her phone would break, her
yeah.
face was looking very distorted. Like that stuff was creepy again, but that was very distorted. So that's the stuff where I'm not sure. Again, yeah, I don't know if it's a multiverse thing. I don't know if for me if it's like thinking of it, that's in her head, if that's what she was. Maybe on the outside she was composed, but really in her head she was like
Mm.
freaking out. So that's kind of how I took it, but then I don't know how I take the phone thing. So that's stuff where I'll be interested to read or kind of hear people's perspective on, okay, what could be the meaning of those things, because I feel like there's a couple other times that did that, where which even that time they revealed it to be real, but when she was in the church screaming, I didn't know if that was real or not. I
Mm.
didn't know, was that in her head, but then the vicar's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you're in a lot of pain and stuff. So I don't know if it was trying to simulate something as far as that's going on in her head, or if it just was trying to mess with us as far as you don't know what's real and what isn't, which makes sense for the stuff we get at the end and everything. So I don't have a working theory of why, other than just maybe that's what she was internally going through, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think because you're right. There was other examples of that. I feel like where we got flashbacks, or I don't even know if you want to call them flashbacks, but yeah,
Yeah.
just these quick flashes of like things that didn't exactly happen. Um, I guess just going to another direction. You have your red light on
Hmm.
tonight in your background. I don't know if that's
Of
intentional,
course.
but
It
I
is.
wanted
Yes.
there's a lot of like things that I feel like are symbolism, but I don't get them, so I just want to pick your brain at them. But like
Hmm.
her, like the house being red for me, it like just stood out right away before it was even mentioned. It just like seems so weird. I was like, man, I feel like I never see houses that just have bright red paint on the inside, and it
Hmm.
really stood out in certain shots. Like when she first goes in the kitchen, it's like the red wall on one side and just the regular kitchen wall on the other side. But then like her friend comments on it later when she's giving her the tour. Obviously, the hotel room that her and her ex-husband, or her late husband, I guess, have is like a kind of an orange lighting as well. So is that just what it is? It's just referencing the hotel because it's, I don't know, it's like orange and then red, so it is kind of a different color. I don't know if I'm missing something there.
Yeah, I don't know. They made mention of it quite a few times, and I just wasn't sure. Was it supposed to be kind of red to invoke the color of blood to try and rattle
Mm,
the character a little bit? Because like it feels like she's fully put together, not fully put together, but she's as put together as she could be when she gets there. And it feels like once Jeffrey asks about the husband, that's when things sort of unravel. And
mm,
that's where, again, for me, it's like, okay, is this like a psychological break, or is this actually all happening? You know?
yeah,
And that's where there's that, like, not that I'm trying to be too grotesque, but I don't know if it's also try to kind of put forward stuff about the female anatomy, because this movie plays a lot on
sure,
imagery with that and stuff like
yeah,
that, you know.
that's a
So
fair assumption. Yeah.
those yeah, those were some of the things that I took from it. I can't figure out the orange one, other than to me, it just like I really liked the setting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's a very terrible situation we're going back to, but I
Yeah.
love the coloring with that. And you'll find that if you ever watch Ex Machina, like he's really good with coloring, and red's a big thing in Ex Machina as well. So
Interesting.
it might just be also that's like like a trademark. It's just like, I got to put it, but I
Yeah.
don't think Annihilation had much of that. But yeah, because Annihilation is more just like in the woods, in the forest, and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think those are some of the things I took from him. But he is one of these guys. He is like a little Kubrick, where like everything's put in there for a meaning. You know, he's very meticulous with things he does, and that's where I'm sure watching this movie again, you would definitely pick up on some things. I would just probably much rather watch the 15-minute YouTube video of hey, what you missed, or
Sure.
theories, because I just don't know if I want to sit there, even though it's only an hour and a half. But
Yeah, it goes by pretty quick. You mentioned the scene where I guess when Jeffrey's giving her the tour,
mhm.
and the part that her name comes up, Mrs. and Miss, that kind of thing. I liked this because she kind of quickly corrects him and says like, call me Harper, my name's Harper, whatever she says. But he
Mhm.
always continues to call her by what is essentially the husband's last name. And I know he
Yes.
never gets the description, like the full details of what happened there, or that I mean, I guess like she said, she's kind of insinuating that there was a divorce there. But
Mhm.
I liked that detail because even though Jeffrey until the it's not until the very end that he feels like the one safe guy, even though obviously he looks the same, so you know something bad is gonna happen. I just like that little touch that he continually calls her by what would be the man's name in that relationship. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It feels like he's the nicest one of them, but he still is always kind of talking down to her, even
Yeah.
unintentionally. And you're right.
He's
That's like
even
the first
creepy in
time.
the tour. Like
Yes.
he is funny, but there is still. I mean, you know, it's a horror movie, I guess. So you're going in like something's weird gonna happen with him.
Yeah, there's that. And again, this is where I also wonder too, because he's like forcing to buy her a drink at that bar. He keeps saying, "I'm gonna buy
Yeah,
you a drink. I'm gonna," and
yeah,
that's where again I'm just headcanoning that. Yeah, there is something in that drink, and that's why
sure.
she had a crazy experience. But he is constantly just kind of like little girling her in a sense, and I
Mm-hmm.
do like that because he comes off of this very kind of comedic, almost Ricky Gervais type character, where he doesn't seem threatening at all until the end. He just, again, all these
Yeah,
people are very threatening. But yeah, I really like the character Jeffrey, and I was thrown off guard because anytime I saw this poster, because it's just the word men and it's over Jeffrey's face, and it's just like
right.
okay, what is this about? And I feel like the way what they're trying to represent with Jeffrey again, like another allegory for life is, yeah, he might be the nicest, but that doesn't mean you can trust him or that he's a good person. You know, it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like it almost feels like that niceness of Jeffrey. It's not that, oh, he's a little bad. It's no, that just might just be a cover or a friend, and not even purposely. He might be doing that in his mind, but it's just kind of saying like, yeah, the nicest person you know. It's like the Joe from You situation. Like the nicest person you
Mm-hmm.
may know might be one of the scummiest people of them all. And we don't know that for a fact in this, but at the end, it's presumed because he's still talking down to her, and he does turn like the rest of them. You know, at first
Exactly. Yeah.
I was wondering because he comes in for the save and he's kind of there helping her out, but
Well,
I
I
I
mean, even at
never
the
fully trusted him.
well, obviously, like even at the beginning, when he's like, "Oh, you don't need to lock your door around here. If you lose the key, it's all
Yes.
good." Like obviously, he does like the tone of that in that moment isn't sinister, but if you see it as like they're all a team, they're all the same person, then obviously he's.
Mhm.
I don't know if she left the door ajar a little bit. I wasn't sure what was going on there, or if the wind blew it open or something. But either way, I don't know. That kind of relates to. We see that door a lot in this
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah. Which part were you talking about the door? Like the first time the naked man there,
It
or
no,
near the
it's
end?
actually yeah, it is the first time with the Naked Man when she's on the phone
Yeah.
call with her boss. Which I don't know if I'm digging too deep into this, but I feel like the phone call to her boss, it just seemed like her boss was a man and he just was like, I know this is digging a lot into it, but it seems like he's kind of incompetent and she's kind of just having to tell him what to do. I don't know if that's like going too much into it, but like I said, so he tells her to leave the door unlocked, and then I don't know if the door, like if you leave the door unlocked, does it just naturally open like that? If he knows that, why is he telling her to do that?
Hmm.
Once again, that's maybe going too deep into it, but I'm just thinking about these things.
Yeah, no, because that's the curious thing. I think they only did it so she left it open. I think they were trying to subvert expectations that you thought the naked guy was in the house. That like
Yeah,
he would
that's fair.
walk
Yeah.
in, it was already like he was already in there. Because at that point she'd call the police, and then when she turns that doors open, you would be petrified because you don't know where this guy is. And then even
Mm-hmm.
then, it's still scary. Like the sound editing is good because I appreciate that there's not really jump scares in this movie, but there's scenes that feel like jump scares. Like when his hand comes through that mailbox, to me, it's not scary because they played a loud noise. I think the score and sound effects loud, but it didn't feel like it was trying to do that like burn thing. It just felt like this was a very intense situation and it is wrapping up like very quickly. And it always takes you for a turn because it's ramping up. But then they cut to a scene of him being arrested. So you're like, okay, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's over. I guess that's all safe. But then obviously near the end, it's like, no, no, we let him go. We didn't have anything on him. But I really liked the sound ending when we got to that point. Obviously, you brought
Yeah.
up the tunnel, like that stuff was great. They constantly use that tunnel sound like throughout the movie and things like that,
Yeah.
and
I had
lots
a
of. Oh, go ahead.
I had a question about that because I mean that scene obviously is very fun where she's singing these different notes, but when it comes up again at the end of the movie, I think it's is it daytime at that point? But I don't know. I guess it's like almost when the worst is over with. I think it is when it's like okay, it's morning
Mhm.
now, and then like you hear her vocals coming back in there. She's singing that. Were you taking it that it was saying her name because it is four syllables and it sounds like it's like Harper Malo. Like it sounds like it's saying
Oh,
her name. I don't know if I
I
was
think
just
you might
hearing
be.
things, but
I that
if that was like
sounds
intentional, I thought it was like a really cool touch.
that no, that sounds believable. I'd have to hear it again, but that sounds believable because it felt like it was like kind of conjoining into something of words.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like it was a choir chanting something, and the
And I
only
mean, it was her saying it. Like she might have just been
yes,
saying her name, right? So like it makes
yes.
sense too.
And the only other time I feel like you heard a little bit, but the only time it was really emphasized was at the beginning of before everything really went bad when you had like a very, I'd say, like Green Knight montage if they're just showing you images of phallic symbols or like women's opening, and it's just like that those stones. They keep showing these stones in red. They show the vicar standing over them, like all this
Yeah.
stuff. So you had it there, but no, that's a good point. I think that's probably the case, so
Speaking of the Green Knight, when we get the naked guy, because he's kind of evolving throughout this. Like he starts as just
yes.
like a mutilated corpse, but then he's putting leaves in, which that scene is disgusting. He's ripping his
Oh,
skin off and
yeah.
putting a leaf in there. But then by the end of it, he's got like a full on
He's the
like
Green Knight.
yeah, he's got the Green Knight. So it's funny that you noticed that too. I was wondering if you'd
Oh, yeah.
make that similarity.
Oh yeah, especially at the end, he was looking like just so much. He was so green and everything. I just thought, oh, this is just kind of funny about the certain situation.
What what is that's another thing too, like with the look of that character and him slowly turning into a tree, I guess, and then giving birth. Like, just specifically with the look of him being a kind of corpse.
Mhm.
What it is that is the corpse? Are we supposed to like think of that as the late husband, and then like he gets reborn? Like,
I
I
think
just thought of that right now as I said it. Like, is that what they're going for there?
that one I have to look in towards more because the one article I read is apparently he was riffing off something from the medieval times with that character. He had, like, and I think it
Hmm.
was maybe just called like the Green Man or something like that.
Oh, it
And
could have been that same old Arthurian legend, eh?
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think it was the exact one, but felt like it was kind of in that similar thing. And I didn't continue on reading it because I have to do a bigger dive then. But I'm not
mm-hmm,
sure if that character did have something to do with rebirth or reformation because he is, and now we're getting into like the crazy story. He is the first one to start the birth chain, right?
yeah,
And so that's why I think it's based in some sort of history or lore or urban myth or something like that, that character. It almost feels like something you would have heard, like a Mordred, but it's like put into today's
mm,
day. Like that's what I took
yeah,
from it almost.
okay,
Before I read that, that's one thing where you could be like, oh, you just didn't get it. Yeah, no, not that I didn't get it. I get that I felt like it was him just symbolizing rebirth because like he's a growing tree. Like that's what like plant is known for life. It's known for,
mm-hmm,
take it down from your roots. It could still grow back up, given a little water and, sunshine. So that's the way I was taking that at least. And again, it's just, I guess to me, the like, so what happens is this guy, he's a green guy, also, and again, when we get home, I'm liking all this stuff when the bird flies through the window.
mm-hmm,
These guys are constantly popping in and out with the lights and everything. All those apples fall, which is like reminiscent to her late husband falling. Stuff like that. It's like I'm
mm,
really liking everything. So we're ramping up to like a really good finale here. And then we get the Green Knight or the Green Man, I'll call him, and he
mm-hmm.
walks in the garden. And what was your first reaction when he dropped to all fours and he started giving birth? Because it's not like I would. So okay, I was completely surprised, but I wasn't entirely surprised because they kept showing us that statue and they were very much symbolizing, the
Yeah,
female anatomy. So it was like, okay, the only reason I think I was caught off guard is because like in the shot he had a penis, but then when he knelt down, that penis was gone, and
mm-hmm.
uh, lots of stuff was growing and birthing and very
What?
specific, very graphic.
Before I answer, what was your? Did your theater have a reaction to that?
So it was just like quiet, and I'd say around the
Just like
like
disturbed quiet.
yeah, it
Like,
was because I just thought for me it was like I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. But then, like I said, I think, and that goes in some of my cons. By the time we got to like the third or fourth time happening, it was just like whether it was disgusting or nervously laughing. Myself and these other people were kind of laughing, and I
mm-hmm,
was laughing to myself because I wasn't trying to be loud. But I was just like, okay, like so. I think it started in shock, but then I think it turned into comedy, and that's the thing. I don't think the movie means it to be comedic. I really don't. But like
mm-hmm.
at one point when there's like this a vagina forms in a man's mouth and then feet come from that mouth, like
That
it's just
part is when I had to look away. Like the feet. I don't know why it was the feet coming out to me that was driving me insane, but I couldn't handle that part of it.
and that's where it just felt like I don't know, Disney, like not Disney, but just felt like silly, like I don't know. But so I would say it was dead quiet until some chuckling started.
I think I think that someone, like one person, maybe chuckled a little bit like the first time it happened, and
Hmm.
then it like progressed, right? The second time, more laughter. The third time, I was laughing. The fourth time, yeah, fourth time it like went right back, and no one was reacting. All they were just like, "This needs to stop. This has
Yeah.
been going on for 7 minutes at this point.
We
I
get the
can't
joke,
handle it."
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long sequence. Those births take at least
Mm-hmm.
if, and maybe it's not. Maybe you put that scene on YouTube, it's a minute and a half, but I felt like I was frozen in that moment because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, and that's a good thing. Like I said, that interview, I was going to say, hey, he wants to do stuff that people have never seen. You definitely did that. I just think that I'm curious to talk to other people that have seen it because, like, if you had some people in the theater, and I myself, and you, and then I had people in the theater that were chuckling at this, I feel like there's definitely some stuff where like when we talked about Lighthouse, I feel like there's intentional stuff, even the most dramatic moments to be laughing. Where this, I did not feel like he was trying to invoke laughter. I did not feel like that was the
Mm.
goal. I didn't feel like that because I just felt it was so
Yeah.
dramatic, so
Huh.
crimson, but I just felt it got so unbelievable, and it already was unbelievable, but just so like, oh, we're still doing this, and every time a guy would talk, like, oh no, like I don't know if he was trying to invoke comedy because it ends
Well,
with the
I
scene with her
see that I
husband.
I don't even like that part of it. I don't look at comedic laughter. I look at it as like everyone is uncomfortable and it's like a nervous laughter to like
I
try
guess. Yeah.
alleviate the mood. I think that's maybe the way I took it, but I could also see it as like this is getting so absurd that I'm
Yes.
laughing at it in that way. So yeah, I don't know where that balance is, and I'd be really curious to hear where the intention was supposed to be. Muds did not find that scene funny, by the way. Like that to
Yeah.
her, like
Yeah.
no, not at all. For some of the other people in the theater, I guess it evoked uh some laughter.
Yeah, and that's what happens is so we have the Green Man, and he just starts to birth every
Yeah,
single version of this actor we've met throughout this thing, and then he keeps having growths on whether it's his back or his nether regions or his mouth, and yeah, they're symbolizing, birth, rebirth, and things like that, and
well,
then
yeah, it's like the cycle just will continue or has continued
yes,
forever, and I also was wondering how much of that was supposed to be that obviously the statement of like all men are the same and men are evil, men are like they're I guess they're trying to show it as like you're that way from birth. Like it's not even like a learned
generational almost,
behavior.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just you're just born that way. And so
mhm.
that to me is like that's like a hot take, I guess you could
That's
say.
some
Like
deep
that's a
stuff,
very
yeah.
interesting thing, right? Because we look at these behaviors as like learned behaviors, but this movie's kind of making a different claim, which, once again, I feel like with everything I could be reading into it too much, but there's so much to break down. So I
I
don't know.
don't think
That
so.
could be the case.
I don't think so because I took the same thing as far as like
Okay.
it's a cycle, or at least I feel like that's a part of the story you could, because
Yeah.
he's also been, when I read that, he's also kind of played that card of, oh, this movie has lots of meanings and it means something to it. So it's
Sure.
almost one of those
It's just
things
supposed
like,
to make you think one way or the other, just like which side do you lie on, I
yeah.
guess is what it's
And at
asking.
the end of the day, maybe he just decided, no, I just want to make this fucking weird, gross scene, and he had no meaning behind it. Oh, I don't believe that, but like you plop it in this movie, you could have a bunch of Twitter threads and conversations about like what is the meaning of this. But
Mm.
really, that's the thing. Like the film doesn't propose anything forward, but again, it does. When the last cycle it ends with the ex-husband and what happens, saying it's still your fault. Like I blame you for everything, and it's just I think it's also just trying to symbolize that she gets the axe. We don't see her kill him, but I feel like it's almost like you got to do it yourself in a way. Like you can't depend
Mhm.
on a man, or you can't depend on someone else, whether it is a man or anybody else. But in
Yeah.
this take, they're going like, you can't depend on a man to kind of step up himself. Like it doesn't matter how much trauma has happened to him, he's still gonna blame you for the core issue. And
Yeah, and the other like layer to that I really enjoyed is that just part of the James was the husband, the late husband's name,
mhm,
and he just like can't. He needs himself to be the only thing that she cares about or thinks about. Right? He's like constantly pushing this that
yeah,
he should be like her most like priority and all this stuff, uh and like her line about like you're never gonna see me again is such an important line, and that's to him when he makes the decision to kill himself because he knows that the only way for her to truly see him again forever is to have this like disgusting imagery
mhm.
that she's gonna be stuck with, which is just so fucked up,
Oh
obviously.
yeah.
Um,
Or he just
and
fell. We don't know for sure.
yeah, well, who knows? She's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, could have slipped. So yeah, I liked and like even like taking her phone, like he just needs to know like exactly what she's saying and like
Mhm.
his own place of confidence.
You're
Uh,
scaring me.
yeah. So I forget where I was going for that because like what does he say on the couch again? There's a line there. Uh, I don't know. I lost my train of thought there a little bit, but
Well,
there
yeah,
was
he's pretty much
something.
just saying that, she's kind of ruining his life. So the only
Hmm.
way, and I'm paraphrasing, to ruin her life is if she leaves him, he's going to kill her himself because you'll
Yeah.
always think about that. It's going to kind of be burned in your mind forever, and you'll know it's your fault. And that's what I did like about, because I like this at any time.
Hmm.
And you'll, at some point, you guys see everything everywhere all at once. But even Doctor
Hmm.
Strange, I've said this many casts, I'm a huge fan of the what if scenario. As far as the stuff I put to bed when I was younger, that stuff that always would mess with me. So that fact that you have that, but then when you have that scene with her and the vicar, and he's just like, do you ever think about if you apologized, could that change things? Now, I love the way they phrase it, because this is before he gets like really crazy, obviously later
Hmm.
on. But like at this point, yeah, he's an asshole, and yeah, you definitely shouldn't say that. But she's definitely thought about that, right? And there's still a chance because I guess we didn't talk about there in the argument. This is a flashback. The ex-husband hits her, and he's
Mm-hmm.
apologizing. And that creates the hey, get out of my house, you're never going to see me again, this marriage is over.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, the vicar again, he just does it so nonchalantly, and that's what makes him a dick. Like, oh, why didn't you apologize? I'm sure if he apologized, but like he's not treating it with big as a big issue. But that's why I love that even though we are siding with our character, and even though she had every right to kick him out, you do know there is a version of that story where maybe she let him apologize and he is still alive, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where he even says that to her, is like, the only reason you're this so worked up is because you think that, and I
Yeah.
think that was a really good kind of play on everything, because at that point, same thing even with the cop, and that's how they're trying to do that whole like men get away with things, because it's like the cop is either being lazy or careless as far as letting this guy go or not. Like, even if it gets let go, you should alert this woman, hey, this guy is back on the loose, you want to be
Mm-hmm.
careful and everything like that.
Yeah, and
But
just like
it's
this small town where he's like 5 steps away.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and he knows where she lives, but he just lets it go, But at the same time, you go, oh well, technically he's right, because what eventually they couldn't keep him there forever. So that's why I love. They always at the beginning they try and paint the men as being absolute assholes, but they always fall back on, oh, but like there's a little substance to the truth of like that they can get away
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Yeah.
Same thing. Reason Jeffrey can kind of always be popping around or be inappropriate is because he's the landlord and she kind of has to deal with it, or she's not going to have a place to stay right now. So they constantly
Yeah.
do that with these characters. Not the little boy who wanted her to sing, but even then, like I talk about the examples, he wanted to play hide and seek, she doesn't. He calls her a bitch for not wanting to play hide and seek, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
like she did, oh, actually, he calls her a bitch because the vicar tells him to go away, but it's his fault that he's being told to go away because he's being inappropriate. But again, he
Mm-hmm.
blames her for that. Oh, it's your fault I got
Yeah.
kicked away, So
Yeah, and I mean, even just the kind of similar to what you were saying about Jeffrey earlier, how the vicar, because of his profession and even just like his attire and who he is, she expects him to be like a trusted character, someone that she can put
yeah.
like her faith into a little bit. And
It started like
obviously,
that. I was like, oh,
yeah,
he's a good guy. Yeah.
yeah, and so I really like that part of it too. That once again, like the one, like when she, because even with Jeffrey, like she's holding back just the little details of her not telling him that she plays the piano. I really liked
Mm-hmm.
that little choice from her, and then obviously she kind of somewhat gets grilled about the husband situation, so she reveals just a tiny bit, like as little as she possibly can to get him away. And so I like that too with the vicar, like that she feels like, okay, this is a trusted character. He's listening to me, and so that's when she opens up, and then it means nothing, and it just gets her in more shit than before. And he just, yeah, once again, as you said, victim blaming. And then, I mean, him putting the hand on her knee, of course, such
Oh,
a gross touch.
yeah.
I can't remember, like, does he lean over and put his left hand on? I feel like it would have more impact if it was the left hand, because that's the
It
hand gets
was, yeah, because
chopped
I
up.
think
Yeah.
they very much make it avert that he's doing this, because it's
Yeah.
like, to me, like a double, because it's like, one, she just met you, but two, you're supposed to be like a man of the
Mm-hmm.
cloth and everything like that. And
Yeah.
again, I think that's also him kind of like taking aim at not just men but also religion in a sense
Yeah.
too. Same thing like you're talking about, this like supposed to be a trusting figure,
Mm-hmm.
but whether it's that, whether it is, yeah, like the victim, like they usually they're supposed to try to help you, get closer with a god, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, not to rain down hellfire on you. And that's what he kind of does at the end. But again, that's what I like though, is he touches her knee, but she doesn't freak out or super react. So you're kind of like, okay, maybe he is a good character because she's comfortable with this. So I guess I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, but
Well,
she's probably just being comfortable to be nice, or because, she doesn't want to make a
mm-hmm.
scene or something, you know.
Yeah. And he, like, it's not even that he just, taps on her knee quickly and then like
Hmm.
brings it off. Like he holds it there, and then when he, like, right before he removes it, he like squeeze, of course he has to
Yeah.
squeeze
Yeah.
the knee too. But I also like the little touch that we get a line from James, I think it was before that scene in one of the flashback sequences, that they got married in a church, and
Hmm.
you're, this is going against God. So obviously some part, either he was religious and she wasn't, but she got married in church as, like, because it's a thing to do,
Hmm.
traditional kind of thing, or she was religious, and that's another reason why she gave you even a little more trust in this guy.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't mean shit. So I like that
No.
little touch as well, because that's kind of seems like what, maybe like a throwaway line that they got married in a church or something, but then kind of comes back later. So I thought that was well done.
Yeah, I took it as either she was or they were both religious because I think if
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't religious, I don't know why she would go to that church to, because most of the time,
Right.
like, I guess you could make the argument that, oh, maybe she's trying to find God, but it's not. I think that'd be different if the husband and her were on good terms and he passed away, but they weren't. So it's not like I don't think she'd be
Mm-hmm.
seeking out. So I think it's part of her life, and she's going there. It's just like to
And
find some sort of
I like how,
trust.
yeah, and then once again, that's like another reason where like Jeffrey's uh like Jeffrey's level, because he points out like, oh, there's the church in the distance, you just go check it out. Like he says
Hmm.
that line in kind of just a passing way, and that's a very video gamey thing of like, oh, see that thing in the distance, like, oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
go find that later, of course. But yeah, once again, I like that it kind of is a bit of a foil for Jeffrey's character as well. Like thinking about it more, man, like there is so many little things that go on during that tour that like come back later in like cool ways. Like that's why I'm not like flunking this movie by any means, because there's like a
Hmm.
lot of
Oh
really
yeah.
cool symbolism and foreshadow and cinematography stuff in here that like it's fun to like geek out about. Like there's a lot of little details.
Oh yeah. No. Well, definitely. I said go watch his other ones because he's a stickler for that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. I'm trying to think of where to go else now. Unless you have a particular spot to take us.
Sure. I Here's another question for you: Is
Mhm.
the first time we see the kid, he's wearing the mask, which of course it's like a kind of damsel in distressy sort of
Mhm.
mask, I guess, like a woman who's like in peril, which is just like a really weird thing for this
Why do you have
kid to
this at
wear.
a church? What do you
Yeah,
like? What dress up day did you guys just have here?
but when the kid is in the house, and he puts the mask on the bird and is just like moving it back and forth. What does that mean? Like I feel like there's some symbolism there as well. That one as well went right over my head. I don't know what that was supposed to mean with the mask on the
That's
bird's
one that
head.
I can say also went way over my head. I
Okay.
don't know if that's a religious one, if that has something to do, or if it was just him being weird. But there's nothing I saw from that invoked anything. It's like okay, this has happened before. But I feel like because they took a moment to shine it out, and it was like, God, fair enough play. Like a couple like 10 seconds of him doing it's like okay, this should mean something than just other than trying to be creepy, right? That I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that would where I feel like we're already doing that with this body horror stuff. I don't think you need any more creepiness on there. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to hear some potential theories because yeah, I don't know. And plus, even
Mm-hmm.
then, back to that bird,
I
that
don't
was
even have a
a big
theory for
bird.
that one. Like
Yeah,
it's, yeah,
yeah.
it's just way out there.
That was a big bird too. It's moving that chair around quite a bit. Like I know
Oh my
crow's gonna be
god, yeah.
big, but that was a pretty massive crow,
Mm-hmm.
weighty crow. So
Yeah, I guess over in England there they have nice big birds. You know.
yeah. And I guess I should mention this before I forget. The other thing of why headcanon potentially being like all in her head is once like that ending has like a lot of guys chasing her coming in the house or just stuff's happening, right? Lights are going on off like we talk about all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they start to get injured like her husband, that's when I was like, okay, this feels a bit too much of an anomaly because you have the broken leg, you have
Yeah.
the arm and everything like that,
Yeah.
and then later on the head. So that's where it's like, okay, all these characters have this attribute. Now I guess you could say because it almost feels like sometimes they're trying to say that this there's just one of them and they like have spun out from each other. I don't know. I have no clue what the actual, canon is with all these guys and everything like that. But the injuries, that's another thing as far as symbolism show. Okay, very much they're all the same. Even though those are her husband's injuries, they're coming on to these guys. And man, what like again, I it was the ending was a bit much for me. And when I say a bit much, it wasn't the point where I was feeling queasy like oh my god, just a bit much as far as I just thought they went overboard with it. But one shot I did thought was really well done and just like like just very well thought of was when he takes his arm it split apart and he like puts it around her shoulder almost
Oh
like
god.
massager. It's disgusting,
And
but
then
it's
she just
just
has like a blood necklace for the rest of the
oh
movie
yeah,
because
yeah.
of that. Yeah.
But it's just like was such a good visual. Like I never thought of this arm being splintered that's gonna like hold this woman's arm and everything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, good stuff there.
I also, so here's like a potential take of like what is going on is
Mm,
that the vicar does mention like he's like, okay, you're tormented, and then she's like, I don't
mm.
think torment is the right word. She can't find the word, and he says, oh, you're haunted. Which
Haunted,
I mean,
yeah.
this movie's not playing up that there's ghosts cruising around, but like it could be some like
They're
weird
ghostly.
ghost that's like, yeah, taking these different forms,
Yeah.
and that's what's doing it. And to add on to that, she walks by a graveyard a couple of times, which is really not used much as a set piece. It's more of a background. We do have the naked guy standing there in one shot, but she does
Which
go
I
through a
love. I
graveyard a
love that
couple of times.
reveal when like he's not there at all, and then they pull up the photo, and he's just like she takes it, and he's just there in the background,
Mm.
just staring there and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're right, because they do. I feel like I can't remember the second time, but I feel like they bring up haunting another point, and it was
Mm.
and that's again where that's my head can I just go, oh, like it's a mental haunting, like that's why this is happening, because she can't
Right.
even, it's literally what her husband said, where this is going to go with you. And it felt like she's just kind of ignored it, because what is she doing? She's literally running away from her problems. Now I think that can work for some people, so definitely if you need that, go ahead. And also too, if you are in the situation or have ever been in a situation like the husband, always get help, always talk to people. There's always somebody out there willing to listen. You'd be surprised as far as family members, whatnot. Don't be embarrassed by it. People have tough
Mm-hmm.
times, so there's tons of ways to help. But with this, I feel like it's her. She literally has gone through this trauma, and she's renting this place and just running. And I think that's the thing where, yeah, okay, it could be this ghost that kind of takes on these forms, but also just you can't outrun your mind. It's gonna play
Mm-hmm.
tricks on you. So that's where for me, like I like the movie better when I try to think of it's like a allegory in her head that she's working through. But at the same time, it could very much be a ghost because he brings it up, and
Mm-hmm.
even then, it feels like, so like I said, I feel like things change when her husband gets brought up, but things really don't change until she gets in that tunnel. Because it's almost like you could like she's walking on like in every single horror movie, right? Oh, it was the house was built on an Indian burial ground and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. Like she goes in that tunnel and she like just is in that presence, because that's the thing where I remember in the trailer they'd shown that guy. They didn't show the full scene, but the thing is, when she's in that tunnel, she's doing the yell and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's not there right away. It happens a little bit, so you can almost be like, "Oh, that triggers something in this community,
Mm.
this village, this property of she went down this tunnel." And especially too, it's not even until she walks in the middle of it, and and I was waiting for it, and maybe this is something that I'll have to look for other people's reports. They kept showing that puddle, and they kept showing it like the ripple effect, and I think that was
Mm.
also just kind of playing off what ifs and stuff, but they kept showing that, and I was waiting like, is something going to happen with that? Is a guy going to pop up? And like water really has nothing to do with the husband's death, right? There's been tons of other
Yeah. Well, it's
symbolized.
raining.
Yeah, I guess so. It could be that, and maybe it is. I guess it's just like that puddle it was so specific where I didn't tribute to that, but I guess it could be.
Yeah.
I just thought it was something more, so that's where I
She
could
does.
kind of
There's
find
also
that.
that scene where she's in the bathtub, like underwater,
Oh
or I
God,
think that's even like a flashback thing
it,
too,
it
right?
it's one of those in montage where they're showing a bunch of images together. I'm pretty sure,
Well,
and
yeah, because she's in the bath
it's a fucking
at one
scary
point,
image.
and she's like sending a picture, and
hmm
then yeah, and then later, yeah, one of those flashbacks where she's like underwater
Oh,
screaming. So you're
just
right. I
eyes
think
wide
there's
open
maybe
here.
something more to that, but I feel like yeah, there's definitely an association of like, okay, it rains in this forest, and that's when I guess yeah, when it first starts raining, she's actually enjoying it. Like she's takes
Yeah,
it in, she like holds it in her hand, she sits there under the tree and just kind of watches for a bit. And then it's not till later when things go awry when it's not raining anymore. But then it's raining throughout the whole flashback of her and her late husband at the hotel. So
and even
you're
if
you're
you
definitely
look,
onto something for sure.
well, and even if you look at the puddle, I'm not sure if they're trying to do it, but the puddle is like oval shaped, like a tub.
Mm.
It's not just like this like
Whoa,
big blue.
that's I didn't
Yeah,
catch that. That's deep.
but again, I don't know what the meaning of that.
They
I
also
don't
have
know.
one really good shot where it's just the puddle and it's like a flipped image of a thing.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
like, it was like 5 seconds long, and I was like, what am I looking at? This is really
Yeah.
trippy. And
And
before I
then so
realized what was going on.
and then sometimes like there's some directors that would admit this, some that won't. There's some that put that in there just because, you know what, this is a great looking shot, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like that flip, like when you mentioned the flip image, that made me think right away. It's like, okay, this could also just be like, hey, this is a really cool image, I'm gonna do that right here, and just, for no reason. But again, is it just kind of that her flipping into out of reality in a sense? But yeah, that bathtub
Mm-hmm.
shot, I think I had seen it before in the teaser, but in the context, and again, like I feel like that shot is just because she's in a bathtub and it's kind of red. So I feel like it's after her husband has died. She probably had a bath, and I feel like it's the blood coming from her nose.
Mm.
Like it's clearly her just screaming because she's going through that trauma. So there's nothing like haunting or scary about that scene per se. But that image is like burned in my mind. Anytime I saw it on Twitter, now it's like, oh my God, like it's just scary. It's just like
Yeah.
and that's where one thing I there, because there's so many horror movies out there, it's hard to invoke images like that that do stick with you. And that's one, and just certain things like even that tunnel, like it's phrased so perfectly because it's such a beautiful scenery and setting. But then you just got this long, dark tunnel that's just gloomy and dark and creepy.
Mhm.
But at the end of it, it's all nice and bright again. But then you see this gloomy, dark shadow, and just the way
Yeah.
he's, and it's not even like he's walking at her, he just full on sprinting at her. And that's where, again, where I was probably liking the first and second act more was that what happens with the birthing and everything, you couldn't put yourself in that situation because there's no way. But if you were in a tunnel just enjoying your day and you saw someone
Well,
running you would be, I would be horrified. And I'm a grown man. I would be horrified if someone just started
you should
running.
do this in near Hope,
Should
which
I?
is a city, in British Columbia. There's like these tunnels that you can go through that are like
They're ruined for me. They're
the old
ruined for
train
me.
tunnels. It's very like touristy, so it's like there's
Yeah,
people
yeah.
there. But I did that last summer, and it is like honestly kind of a magical experience being in like when you're in the very center of it, and
Mhm.
yeah, it just feels like safety is so far away, and it's like
Oh, yeah.
dark and gloomy, and like the air is different, and you just have like a mountain on top of you literally in this place in Hope. It's like it's a very trippy place. Obviously that doing that by yourself, I'd be like kind of freaked out. I was doing it with friends, so it was fine, but yeah, it's a very like I somehow felt like I could relate to what it feels like to be in that tunnel, and obviously
Mhm.
to see someone pop out of the other end, like that would be the ultimate horror thing to see that in real
Oh,
life.
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
it's not even that it's somebody, just somebody that's sprinting right
Yeah.
away in this jacket. And yeah, and that's what sucks because I think it's good because the film is like very slow paced. But I think I think that's one good thing about its runtime is I feel some of these movies we've talked about before that are on the weirder and slower pace side, that once they're longer, I'd say even like Mother, because if they're around 2 hours, when they're slower paced, it makes it feel
Mhm.
even longer. Now this to me felt like a 2 hour movie. It didn't feel like overstay its welcome. It just felt like there was some heavy stuff at the end. But I thought it was placed appropriately at the beginning because I feel like we talked about the Jeffrey stuff already, but her getting those moments to enjoy life and you to kind of invest the character and like her and start to root for her, that's all kind of needed stuff until you get
Mhm.
like the slam on the brakes of that tunnel. But I liked
Mhm.
all that stuff because it's just like, oh yeah, this person really needs this time away and it's this great house. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that in that tunnel scene, like I know it was like the trailer scene, but man, like that is just like such a great moment. And that's like the one part where it's like, man, I'm glad I saw that just that one scene in theaters, because
Mhm.
when you're in a very dark theater and it's like slowly zooming in until like the screen is like,
Oh
completely
yeah.
black as you're in the tunnel, cuz it's like what is it? It's like the shot is like cuz she where she's standing is blocking like the light on the other side. So you
Mhm.
just like get complete darkness for like a moment there, and then the camera switches. But like that was like a really cool moment, I feel like, to feel in the theaters. But not that I'm saying you should go to the theaters just for this to go see this
Yeah.
movie now just for that one
See the
scene. But
tunnel
that moment
scene,
was
get
cool.
out. Yeah, yeah. No, no, exactly. No, I agree 100%.
um, there's this is another thing. I'm not sure if there's anything to read here, but at the
Mhm.
end, when she's well, I guess just quickly say like when she leaves the house, and it seems like the movie could end here. She gets in her car and she's driving away, and then it
Yeah.
like starts up this whole another second half of this scene,
Yeah.
which
Thought
is
it was
fair.
over.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to take from that, because once again, if we're going with this like haunting theory, where like maybe she just turned her car around and smashed into the wall, and then her friend comes later. Like I think you're not supposed to believe that. You're supposed to like everything that happens to her is real. Obviously, that's kind of like the
Yeah.
point of this. But the one part that I was a bit puzzled by is that when Jeffrey takes her car and leaves her there, like the night sky is just absolutely beautiful, all the stars and stuff. But like that's not what the sky looks like if you're anywhere like near civilization, because you just can't get that much. There's too much light pollution, and it's like you can see
Yes.
the whole Milky Way. So I don't know if that was supposed to be like that's how alone she is or how far away she is from safety, that she's in just a completely isolated place. It could just be like a cool night sky shot in the background that was CGI'd in. Like it very well could be that simple, but I think it was. I've been really into astronomy the last year, so I thought that shot was beautiful. I guess I just wanted to call it out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I was 50-50 on it, where it looked great, the imagery it looked great. I was just like, why is this here? And then this is
Yeah.
again, I'm always
They
up
really
to,
highlight it and like zoom up into it a
yeah,
bit.
and it
Yeah.
felt like it was there for like a good 10-15 seconds for like
Mm-hmm.
looking at this. And again, and like you said, it wasn't a way where like they're playing a trick with the camera in the sky, because no, there's no way you could see it. It literally felt like she was in one of those rooms you are at a museum where they give you the stars and you look right up and they're there. Like that's where for me, I'm very interested to talk to other people about it, and I'm always, whether a message or anything like that, if you were to tell me, oh, this scene's in here, it symbolizes this because it means that, and they go, oh, okay, that makes me enjoy that a bit better. But in the moment, I was just like, this looks great, but what the hell are we doing here? Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
why are we in Star Wars? All this, like, why is like, because it's just cement, and then the entire upper screen is just stars. Like you said, it's like she's in the
Yeah.
middle of space. So that's where I was like, okay, I don't like.
Isn't that what Annihilation's like, a space movie, right? Maybe he was just calling
Yeah,
back his
kind of.
previous
There's
project.
space sort of. Yeah, I'm sure you look at this star, it's the same one, but that's where at the point where like she starts to escape. That's where I was starting to get rocky, because the second Jeffrey gets in that car, that's where I guess I would say goes downhill for the most part. But like you have that moment where Jeffrey gets in, but she kind of stops for Jeffrey, which is weird. Like he's already been kind of weird. So it's like, why are you stopping for him? You know, not to trust him. She takes him in that car. We got the space shot, and then yeah, we get all the burrs. And the other thing I didn't really I don't know why they did this when, the movie happens, she gets the axe, and the husband's just saying, like, yeah, he still hold you guilty. It's pretty much like I said, and saying like she's gonna kill him, which I'm so surprised. Like, I guess maybe you could say she didn't kill him, but I'm surprised how grotesque this movie was, but they didn't show her shot the husband down or something like that. I was
Mm-hmm.
flabbergasted. But the fact that you get that, and then you get like the end title card sequence, but then there's the scene after. I felt like they should just put that scene
Mm.
after before the end. I felt like it was a weird Marvel stinger of like, oh, she's showing up, and then I was like, do I stay the whole time? Which I didn't. So it was. I thought that was just lots of things about the ending were weird and pace strings, but I thought that was a little weird too, as far as just cutting those two scenes of the friend arriving, the pregnant friend, by the way, who,
Mm.
which I thought that's
Yep.
another, like, that's why to me, I also thought, again, is this just in her mind? Because she's been talking to her best friend who is pregnant. And what if, same thing when you're talking about the car, like I said earlier, she could have just been trying to go for a drive and she crashed it because she was fucking hammered or
Mm-hmm.
like on some sort of drug. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that her friend is pregnant, that is not a mistake. That is not,
Mm-hmm.
now it could be some sort of irony, but I just feel like this director put that in there purposely. It's not that he hired this actress, like, oh, you happen to be pregnant? Great. Like, no, I felt like the second when I saw her belly, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, she now, like, we just saw his belly, we've seen a bunch of births. There must be some sort of like collision
There's
here,
something there, and I mean, obviously you wouldn't see her full body at any point because they're just doing FaceTime and they're just
Yes.
talking on this camera. But I like that as just, I don't even really call it a twist, but just like a little reveal,
Mhm.
because yeah, you wouldn't have seen her at that point. And I was kind of thinking about that halfway through. I'm like, it's kind of interesting performance from this actress. She never had to be on set, or like,
Yeah.
I wonder how they, like, obviously she was on set in some way and they filmed that. I'm not sure how they film those scenes usually, if they actually film it through a camera or like a phone camera, or if they just
They
have some
probably do
effects. But
too. They probably do a phone
sure.
camera one, and then well, no, they probably film something with a very nice camera and a phone camera one, and then put it on the phone camera just to make
Mm-hmm.
sure it's as high quality.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. I like that touch on there.
But yeah, like I said, between her pregnant and that stuff going on with the phone, there has to be more with that character that I'd be interested to hear other people's theories of like
Yeah,
what's
her,
going
like,
on.
her profile icon on her phone,
Oh, that was
because I
scary.
didn't notice it until later on. Like, it was it like that earlier on in the
Yep.
movie, or maybe
It was,
it
yeah.
was always like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
they showed like images of a previous group chat or something like
Oh,
that,
okay.
and I
She
really
was like
liked that.
eating something weird, or
Yeah,
like,
it looked weird. It was just
yeah.
weird, and I also really liked it. Felt like kind of squeamish, but I liked that reveal of, oh, you don't gotta give me the address. I'm already here, and like, yeah,
Mm,
it's cheesy horror stuff, but with this, because I was already creeped, out, like, oh my god, and the lights go, you're like, oh boy, and you just know it's going bad. She keeps losing signal. She
yeah.
keeps seeing in the images, and I would always like too when she'd be talking on the phone, not looking at it, but us as a viewer would see those creepy images. So she saw it a few times, but it actually happened a lot more times than she even knew. And
Mm-hmm.
oh boy, got
Um.
goosebumps right now.
Yeah. She had goosebumps like at one. I forget what scene it was, but it was like very noticeable. Like she was just
Mm.
like freaking out. I have a couple more things here. One was just this very like what felt like a throwaway line, but I think there was something to it where the vicar. So he mentions like something about screaming, and she's like, "Oh, he wasn't screaming." When talking about like what happened with the late husband, and he's like,
Mhm.
"No, I heard you're screaming." And
Yeah.
then later, I think it's in the yard, like one of those weird like respawning, in that part with the Green Man. I
Mhm.
forget if it's the Green Man that starts screaming, but one of them like just I guess it's like the first baby, quote unquote baby. It's like the kid, and
Yeah.
he just starts screaming. So I think there was something with that. I like that kind of little touch. And like once again, it shows like kind of a sinister angle from the vicar in that moment too,
Mm.
and like just kind of getting in her head.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to think about which one like particularly scream, but yeah,
I
it's
think
one
it
of
was the
those.
kid when the kid
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
kid
you're
was the
right.
first
You're
one to
right.
spawn out,
He has
right?
that haircut too because he has like a bowl cut. But yeah, no, I think you're right. That was the kid, which would make sense because if this kid is going through this experience, must be somewhat traumatic, you know.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I guess a couple other just little imagery things. They do have a lot of just scenic shots, landscape sort of
Mm.
shots, and some of them are zoomed out, which like beautiful countryside and whatnot. But then some of them are often the camera's very low down, like it's in like at the height with the rest of the flowers, and you're just kind of seeing these pastures and things like this. I really liked those shots in general, like just cinematography was good. There was
Oh
a
yeah.
couple of them in particular that stood out with just certain tree placements where you're like the camera angle you're getting, like the trees are in the shadows, so they're completely
Hmm.
black and they're just in formations that like I was starting to see things, in like horror movies when you're always like looking
Yeah.
in the background to see if someone's in the window or the mirror, or in Hereditary when she's like up in the
Mm.
roof and stuff like that. I felt like they were doing a lot of that with these trees could have looked like limbs and maybe they were supposed to be like alluding to something in the future. So I'd have to
Yeah,
freeze frame those and think back, but I just thought there was a little kind of sinister, creepy little things going on there.
and it could be if you're talking about multiple limbs, it kind of invokes the multiple births, or just
Mm-hmm.
like all these people have their
Yeah.
hand in this town or on this woman
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that in a literal or figurative sense. So,
Yeah, and then obviously the statues in the church, which I think you mentioned earlier, but I like that
mhm.
those came up again and again, and they always like when you first see them, it's like something's weird with these, but you don't quite get the
Yeah.
full thing. And obviously, we only see one side of it, and then the camera, like she
Mhm.
never actually sees the other side of the statue. It's just like the camera does looking at her. But then like we keep seeing it, and it's like more and more scary each time with like the way the shadows play off of it, the way it zooms in and has these different colors. So I liked that as kind of a recurring image throughout the movie.
Well, and there's two things I kind of took from that where they have that shot of this like statue, and yeah, if you've seen the movie, but if you haven't, it's like it's a male, I'd say, figure, but it's looking very like demonic. And then the
Mm-hmm.
flip side is a woman with like large breasts, and then like her down area,
Mm-hmm.
her vagina is exposed.
Yeah.
But like, there's two things I took from that. Is one, when you walk in the church, they're like hiding the female part, so it's like that's you can't
Right.
see that, and you would presume they even show that shot after. I think to symbolize two things: of one, the vicar's standing behind it, so almost no one would ever seen it, but also his crotches around that area. He has a whole diatribe about crotches and being insides and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go
I
that
missed a
route,
lot
but
of his dialogue. His like
he
little
whispered a lot.
phrase, yeah, a lot of his phrases and stuff too. Like he was just like ripping out like Bible verses or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I will say I missed a lot of that stuff, whether it was the audio mixing or just like the contents of what he was saying. I didn't feel like I got much.
Mhm.
I feel like that scene would have had a lot more meaning if I could understand what was being said, but
Yeah. But
that's
then
the way it
and then
was.
with that statue too. So yeah, the woman's behind, but it's also just like kind of showing you'd almost want to put that sideways because you're like, oh, to complete the statue, like
Mm-hmm.
you should have both sides there, but they don't. But then I
Yeah.
take it in the reverse where that old little expression of behind every great man is a woman. And that's what I thought too, of like you see
Mm.
the man, you see this man demonic figure kind of, even though it's demonic in this church, it's not a nice looking thing, but you see this manly figure, but then behind it is the woman that, you don't know is propelling it forward, but is. So
Right.
again, some few little things there I thought they were trying to propose, or maybe I'm
Nice.
nuts, so
I liked the start of the movie when she's well, I guess not because the start is in the hotel, like a very
yeah.
brief shot of him falling, and that was the other thing with screaming, right? Is like she's like, could he have been screaming? Like would I or like
Yeah.
would I
Well,
have
his
seen his
mouth was open,
face
so
and
he
stuff
could
like
have,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But so and then when it's the kind of the montage of her driving to the location, just like this song that has very happy chords, like just
Mhm.
very major chords and whatnot. But and then the context of the lyrics are like leaving and love and stuff like this. And then I like that they bring that song back at towards the end of the
Yes.
movie, kind of at bookends, So I liked that little touch. I mean, the music, obviously, we touched on that, is great, but I like the actual songs they add in there too. Seem to really fit
Mhm.
the scenes, and the way they are mixed with the rest of the audio worked really well for me.
Her driving that song is the happiest point in this movie, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all downhill
True.
from there, you know.
Yeah. And then kind of the last note I had in terms of like imagery things that comes up a lot is these dandelions. So we see, I think
Hmm.
maybe it's in the opening montage as well, where we see like a field of dandelions and the wind blowing them away, and then we see that at like the credits, when it goes into the credits, it's like a dandelion with like night vision, like
Yes.
reversed of it, like coming back together, which was very interesting. But then the part that I felt like I was missing something is when the green man, as we've come up with his name, he like, yeah, he blows it, and then like one of
Yes.
them goes into her mouth, and then that's when she really starts what feels like tripping out. Like everything to that point feels like, okay, these guys are in weird places. The lights are going out, but it feels still believable ish. At that point is when she like really starts, I think, kind of tripping, and things no longer are realistic
Yeah.
from that point forward. So once again, I feel like there's something more to that I'm not necessarily not necessarily getting. But any thoughts on the dandelions?
Well, and again, this could just be more of, we talked about this already, just present day issues going on. But, you know, there is this talk about, you know, with a woman having to, you know, not be able to get an abortion, shouldn't there be more steps for a man too? Because you think about, you know, a woman can get pregnant once, a man can get hundreds of women
Mm,
pregnant in a month. And that's where, I don't know if
right.
we're trying to correlate to that, but because we had the pregnancies with
No,
the
that
men and
fits. I
he was
like
like
that.
spreading his seed in a way, that's where it kind of felt like
Right, and
she
just like the
was.
non-consent of that too. Of
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that's what I kinda took from it, that it was something sexual, because we were getting that, we're getting the vicar, there was some sexual kind of connotations going on, and then the birthing obviously is something that results after sex, so that's why I kinda thought that it was like a seed spreading thing, and I don't know, especially because the end credits hit about it, I was like, "Man, we see this a few times." We saw this also, I think also for me, the him spraying the seed kind of representing almost birth, or you know, the egg and the
Mm,
semen. We
mm-hmm.
saw that earlier with the deer, where there was
Mm,
this dandelion, the deer was dead, it went in the deer's face, and
right.
it came
True.
back up, the deer is dead. But I think it was kind of showing, like representing life, like showing life. Now again, that was the opposite of it decaying, but still it
Mm-hmm.
was dandelions being around, you know, the form of life in the beginning, in the middle, the end of it. So that's kind of what I was taking for, just because I feel like with the seeds, with the birthing, with her friend being pregnant, I feel like they're definitely hitting on some of that stuff, or that's what he was going for. You know, some of those ways of choice,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, because again, like that's very no, against her will. I don't think she wants Green Man to blow these dandelions at her. So
No, definitely not.
no.
Travis, that was everything in my pile of notes here.
I think that's everything I got. I think you had some good ones there. I think anything I brought up, either you kind of brought up and I spun off there, or I hit at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like I say, I'm in a weird place. I'm excited to talk about this movie in like a year from now, and I guess there's sometimes I feel like I don't know how I've represented myself on this review, because sometimes I feel like I've said stuff that make me sound like I really enjoyed this movie, and there's
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I've said that may feel like I really disliked it. I'm like firmly in the middle. Like for like a score, honestly, I'd probably give it a 7. Now, this is a rare, because I usually say sevens I give are not the greatest film, but I will rewatch. I probably won't rewatch this, but like I'm giving it that for just the craftsmanship of it. And I think it is
Mm-hmm.
good. I always love these movies where we can talk, and this is why I'm
It's a
happy.
thinker.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy you joined me, because it wouldn't have been as good as just me myself, like trying to
Oh
figure
God,
it
yeah.
out. I would have been like her, just like, okay, what happened here? But like I said, my overall thoughts is I thought the movie was just going on a great trajectory, and I think the ending and stuff I could be not, I don't think, talked into for liking overall. I'm down to hear people's theories and thoughts, and maybe that could kind of lessen the blow on some things. But I do think just it's, we talk about all the time where a third act or a bad ending can leave a bad taste in your mouth, and that's what this kind of did. And I don't know if I want to necessarily say it's a bad ending. I think they just went overblown. I think they just went
Mm-hmm.
too far in that. Not that, like I said, it was gross out, it's just the fact that I think they it lost its way a little bit. And I liked the movie when it was being a bit more subtle with its references. And but I'll give this, it's a unique movie. It's definitely one that I'll never forget about. Like, I'm never gonna forget about this movie. So he did that job, and if that's his one job, then there you go. And I definitely think there is lots of symbolisms that I picked up and lots that I haven't. And again, I'm excited for more people to see this movie. I think most people that see this movie will be people I talk to online, because I don't think there's gonna be many people see this. And that's where I would say where, and this maybe gauges my how I like it or not. When I saw Lighthouse, I didn't love it, but I still thought, oh, everybody, let's see it for Golden Geek and stuff like that. If Taylor and Kirkland asked, I'll tell them they could see if they want, but I wouldn't tell them like, oh, you really, this could be a contender. So that's where it's like, I liked it, but not enough that I think like a Malignant or a Midsummer or a Hereditary. Like, it's still in a lower class for me. And I am wondering, because so far I loved Ex Machina. I liked Annihilation, not as much as other people. And then this one, it's weird because I can say I liked it, but this is the way I'll say it to people. It's like, I appreciate it more than I like it.
Sure.
But so far, his films have kind of been more in a downward directory than me. So I hope it's not a Neil Blomkamp situation where I hope I really, really enjoy his next one. But it's always an interesting film. So I was intrigued by my watch here, but I'll probably never need to go back.
Yeah, I think we feel very similarly, and I guess I just I'm probably a little bit higher than you are on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like, this was fun to just break down like a lot of the symbolism, or you caught on details I didn't catch on to, and vice versa. Like, this movie has a lot to it, a lot to unpack, and yeah, I agree with you. I wish it didn't go off the deep end towards the end, because it could have hit all these themes just as well, I think, without being grotesque. And
because it feels like people are gonna just, and this is why I feel like people are just gonna talk about that, and they're not gonna talk about the imagery of it,
the
and
great
the
stuff is
symbolism.
gonna get discounted, because like now Muds never wants to talk or think about this movie ever again.
Yes,
And it's like, oh damn, I would like to talk about, think about some of these, what these things mean, but
I
it's just
feel
not
like
gonna happen for a lot of people.
it does such a disservice to it. It just kind of feels like, I know this, and people are gonna roll over in their seats here when I make this comparison. But like, it would have been like if you're watching Endgame, and then all of a sudden Captain America turned and killed all the Avengers. He's like, I'm with Thanos now, and the movie just ended, and you're like, this isn't track at all. Now this is different where this tracks, but just it for me, the ending is such a con. It's such an out there where it really bogs down the rest of the movie, which that's the tough thing. And that's kind of the legacy it's going to have to go against, I feel, but hey, that's what he wanted, right? He put it in there, and it was a long sequence. So clearly he wanted that, but I almost want to see the version of this movie where that only happened like once or twice, where like Green Man birthed another version, and then another version birthed her husband. And I wonder, for me, like, even that point, would it be a little more palpable? But
yeah, I think ultimately for me, like, you talked about how like you had more positive than negative things, but the negatives outweighed it. I think for me, the positives still outweigh that really gross negative. And like, this is where I'm divided. Where when it comes to Golden Geeks time, I know we'll have seen a lot more movies by then, but for me, it's like, oh, like actor, actress, like score,
yeah, that's
cinematography.
true.
Like, there is a lot
I might
of
have to get
categories
them
that
to watch it.
would fight for this, but I don't know if it's like, if I get one recommendation for everyone to watch, like, I don't know if I'm going to be fighting for men. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm really happy I watched this movie. It's just such an interesting film, and oh god, it could have been great. Like, it was close. It was on the cusp.
Yeah.
It was going in that direction, but I don't know. I feel like we've kind of gone through it here, but this was a fun one to break down, I got to say.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but no, like Dylan says, maybe we'll talk about this again next year, because I didn't think about that, because I would fight for it in different categories, especially in Best Lead Actress, because I really enjoyed her here. So
a villain.
yeah.
I mean, I'd be rooting for this guy as a villain. I don't know if you
the
want
guys,
to bundle them all together. Just say man from man.
Yeah,
Like,
man. Yeah, just men from man. Yeah, yeah. No, I think they are a worthy villain. There's some bad stuff that happened.
We'll see how we feel in February of next year if we're still
exactly.
Like,
we got a lot of
thinking about
movies
it in
to
that
go,
way,
So, but Yeah, let us know as always. We have our Discord. Maddie, you can definitely hit us
Yeah,
up if you
Maddie,
need
I want to
to.
hear more of your thoughts for sure.
Yeah. The YouTube, the Twitter, the Facebook. Let us know. And same thing if you, whether they are your theories or theories that you've read and stuff like that. Because I only read one article. I'm excited that I think, like it said, once this kind of hits DVD, I'm definitely gonna like sulk out some sort of YouTuber explainer, just to see like, okay, what did I
Hmm.
miss and stuff like that. Because I've had both experiences where I go there and go, oh, I liked a bit more, and then other way where I explain like, oh, no, I don't like that at all. So, but yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Dylan. This was
Of
fun. It was
course.
a good conversation, and I hope everyone enjoyed the review. And next time you hear from us, not be boring.
See ya.